We are officially heading into the final quarter of the Orlando Magic's 2025 season. What the Magic will miss without Jalen Suggs, goals for the final quarter, and what's still at stake today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is March 4th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Ike. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're entering the final quarter of the Orlando Magic season. So what the heck happened in the third quarter? We'll talk about what the Magic missed without Jalen Suggs coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic Newsletter. Here we are. The final 20 games of the Orlando Magic season, a season that, frankly, a lot of fans that I can sense want to simply be over. For so many goals and so much ambition and so much anticipation for this season, it has failed to deliver. And it has failed to deliver for a number of reasons, and some of them are things we expected. We expected the offense would still struggle. We expected that there'd be shooting troubles. We expected and maybe believed that there was a ceiling the Magic were going to hit this year. And they have. But it's also where we are for things we did not expect. We obviously did not expect Paolo Banchero to miss 2 months with an oblique injury. We did not expect Franz Wagner to miss 6 weeks with an oblique injury. And we certainly did not expect that Jalen Suggs would miss more than half the season, or nearly half the season at least, with a back injury, then a quad contusion, and now a knee issue that will require surgery and likely mean he is done for the season. The Orlando Magic, who were in fourth place just 2 months ago, and riding high and surviving all the injuries that they are facing, are now struggling to stay above water. They will play a game 83. They will be in the play-in tournament in some form or fashion. We will see this team compete against somebody, whether it's Atlanta, Miami, Chicago. They will have their chance to still make the playoffs. But the sense that I get from fans is that big whoop. There's bigger fish to fry. There are bigger ambitions still to go after. The Magic have to do what they have to do to get the ship right. And we will talk about that. I don't want to ignore the future, ignore those bigger questions. We'll get to that. We'll certainly talk about it plenty in an offseason that will probably be longer than we anticipated. At least a week. The Magic, though, are still trying to figure out how to get what they have right. The formula that worked so well last year, that worked so well in December and November, is no longer working. And the third quarter of the season was when the Magic finally broke. It's when the Magic finally lost the spark. In the third quarter of the season, the Orlando Magic went 6-15. To say the least, that's probably going to be the worst 20-game stretch the Magic are going to have for at least the next 5 years. If everything goes right, this is the anomaly. Orlando went from 4th in the East to 8th because they simply could not win enough games. 6-15 says it all. And while the Magic were able to survive injuries to Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, they were able to keep the ship steady. Things did not truly break until Jalen Suggs went out. Since Jalen Suggs' injury on January 3rd, after the Magic beat the Raptors that evening, the Orlando Magic have gone 8-18, dropping 10 games under 500. They've been one of the worst teams in the league since Christmas, but certainly since January 3rd, since January 4th. They're bottom 5 in the league in net rating. 8-18, for those who care, is a 307, 308 win percentage. That's a 25-win team. We're basing a lot of what we believe this team can do based on who we think they are. The reality is, for the last 2 months, the Magic have been a worse than tanking team. Charlotte and Washington are worse, but they've been bad. Plain and simple, they've been bad. And a lot of it is their offense just doesn't function. Since Jalen Suggs' injury, they have dropped to 12th in the league in defensive rating. They've lost a big piece of their identity. It is probably a little too simple to say that Jalen Suggs is that important. But Jalen Suggs is that important. Jalen Suggs matters that much. Since this is the rankings for Jalen Suggs. The Orlando Magic this season have a defensive rating of 109.1 points allowed per 100 possessions. They're second in the league in defensive rating. They have an elite defense. When Jalen Suggs is on the floor, that defensive rating drops to 104.8. And again, that is against a lot of starting groups. They're nearly 5 points per 100 possessions better defensively with Jalen Suggs on the floor. Since Suggs' injury, the Magic have a 112.8 defensive rating. In the third quarter of the season, the last 21 games, they have a 113.7 defensive rating. Now, this is not all attributed to Suggs. Paolo Banchero, not a great defender. I think he's improved. I think he's gotten a lot better. But he's looked noticeably slower since coming back from the injury. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who is a perfect complement to Jalen Suggs in his organized chaos, has also started to slip defensively. The Magic are starting Cole Anthony a lot. Cole Anthony is not a good defender despite how much he has improved and how much effort he puts into that end. The Magic essentially have Franz Wagner as their best two-way player. He defends all the best players on the other team and scores 25 points per game. I would have been completely justified naming Franz Wagner as my third quarter MVP. But the fact of the matter is the Magic are simply a better team with Jalen Suggs. Before we get to, I gave you the numbers, but frankly, the numbers don't capture what the Magic have lost with Jalen Suggs, without Jalen Suggs. Quite frankly, the Magic have lost their heart. Like that is the ball game for the Orlando Magic. They have lost their heart. Throughout December, throughout November, with all the injuries they faced, they played harder than every team they faced. You knew they would play harder than every team they faced. You knew that this is what they would be and who they would be. You knew it. Just go back and listen to my episode yesterday on the loss of the Raptors. Go back and listen to the episode after the loss of the Cavs. The Magic don't know if they're going to be the hardest working team on the floor anymore. And while that is an indictment of every player and something they have to find here in these last 20 games, it's not the whole story. Jalen Suggs is someone who elevates everyone's game. He gets them intense. You can't help but match his energy. For a team that plays with the second slowest pace in the league in terms of possessions per 48 minutes, Jalen Suggs is someone who looks to push the tempo, who looks to create those extra scoring opportunities, who invites a little bit of chaos where the Magic can thrive with their grit, their determination, their defense. Jalen Suggs, and I'll go ahead and throw this in there too, Mo Wagner are the two players who play above their talent level because they work so darn hard. It's not to say other players don't work hard. These are just guys who elevate it to a different level. The Magic season didn't die when Paolo Banchero got hurt. It didn't even die when Franz Wagner got hurt. They held the ship steady. They gave themselves a chance. The season died when Jalen Suggs got hurt, when he had to miss those 10 games because of the back injury, and now because of his knee issue. In all likelihood, Jalen Suggs is not coming back this season. He will play a career low 35 games this season. Despite having a career season, the Magic have no reason to risk him. He is this important. The Magic have missed a lot without Jalen Suggs. We can complain about his shooting, his efficiency. We can complain about what he isn't. But what he is essential to this team. What he is vital. And unfortunately, what we've perhaps discovered over these last 2 months is his absence for an extended period of time has become fatal. And that's at least a big portion of why the Magic find themselves where they are. But I'm an optimist. There are still 20 games left in the season. There are still 20 opportunities to make good, to do something. And there's still goals to achieve. What the Magic's goals are for this final quarter of the season, we'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready because they swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, like, I don't know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did on Monday night, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. If you need a quick and easy lunch the next day, Dash Pass lets you get your favorite meals with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees. Plus now, you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer. If you're like me and you're working late or you're looking for a snack after the Magic's game against the Toronto Raptors on Tuesday, you could check out those highlights with a midnight snack. Use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 more in a game, like, I don't know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did, Dash Pass members get 50% off and order the next day up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more today. Like I said, I talk to a lot of fans, and please, I read your comments. I know I shouldn't. I read the comments. I try to respond to those that I feel are warranted. So I do see what everybody's saying. I do like to crowdsource. I do like to be involved in discussions among Magic fans. But there is definitely a sense that this season is lost. And look, we'll evaluate the whole season and think and ponder about what this season means. There's still a lot to accomplish. There is still a lot to do. I don't think you should throw away any games. There are still things to do, still things that matter, still things that can help this team get better in the future. All the experiments that maybe you're complaining about that the Magic have been running all year, it's time to complete them. It's time to push those boundaries. The results may not be as important as they will forever, but the bottom line is this. There's still a culture you're trying to build, a culture of winning. So tanking is not an option. The Magic are too good to tank anyway. It's too late to do that. There are still things to accomplish. And obviously, number one, frankly, I do not expect anything less. The Magic need to finish 7th in the Eastern Conference, win the Southeast Division. We want the Miami Heat in our building. If the Magic have to face the Heat to get into the playoffs, make them come north. I don't want to take another trip to Kaseya Center. Nobody wants that. The Magic should be aiming to win their division. That's goal number one. That is, frankly, the most important thing that the Magic can accomplish here over the next, God knows, over the next 20 games. The Magic currently trail the Miami Heat by 1 game for the Southeast Division lead. The Miami Heat still have 2 games in hand. It'll be 3 after. They still have 3 games in hand. They played 2 fewer games. Orlando's going to play Tuesday. Miami doesn't play till a little bit later on. The Magic have to play catch up because Miami and Orlando have, I believe, the same number of wins. Let me double check that real fast because that's important. Yes, Miami has 29 wins. Orlando has 29 wins. Miami's played 2 fewer games. So, Orlando's got to win this game. Got to win on Tuesday. More importantly, though, the Magic still own the division tiebreaker. The Heat are 7-4 in the Southeast Division. Orlando's 8-3. So all Orlando has to do right now is take care of their business against Washington, Charlotte, beat Atlanta 2 more times, and frankly, depending on what Atlanta does, because Atlanta's also 7-4 in their division. Orlando actually owns the best conference record between the 3 teams. Miami's 18-19 in the East. Orlando's 23-18. Atlanta's 20-17. In all likelihood, Orlando owns all the tiebreakers with these other teams. Now, the only thing is Orlando still plays Atlanta 2 more times. They got to at least split those 2 games to tie that, but win both of them, and they're probably going to win the division. The Magic have to do the best they can. I know we live in this like championship or bust culture, and look, I'm not pretending otherwise. The Magic could get their butts kicked by Boston or Cleveland in the first round series. Still matters to go through the process. For Anthony Black playing in his first playoff series, it still matters. For redemption for Franz Wagner a little bit, redemption for Cole Anthony, redemption for Wendell Carter. See what these guys do in a playoff environment. You never know. Give yourself the chance. Making the playoffs is still the number one goal. I said this before the season when I was bullish on the Magic's overall outlook. And look, people yelled at me for this, but I said I expect the Magic to take a little bit of a step back. Something's going to happen that throws them off a little bit. They're adding some new players. It won't be as easy as it was last year. They'll be a little bit higher on people's radars. I expected them to be the 6th seed. I'm not lying about that. I had them at 45 wins winning the 6th seed. You can go back and listen to my tape on that. I said then, and I still believe now, the only surefire failure this season is missing the playoffs entirely. The Magic should be in a playoff series from now until Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner are off the team. Whenever that happens, and it's going to be 5-6 years from now. This is a playoff team. They have to believe it. They have to play like it. They have to earn it. To me, honestly, that's the best. That's not the best part, but it is a good part. The Magic have 20 games to figure themselves out and earn their playoff spot. Fight their way in. Maybe Detroit falls back to them. Probably not. Maybe Milwaukee falls back to them. Maybe Indiana falls back to them. They're struggling a little bit right now. But 6 is going to be real hard. They're 5.5 games back of 6. 4.5 games back of 6. Win the division. That's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is continue to trust Paolo and Franz to finish this thing out. There's obviously been some discussion online, let's call it that, about Paolo and Franz's low usage in Tuesday's game. And, they were aggressive. Not necessarily aggressive to score, but the Magic are trying new ways to get them the ball. And I think one of the things that happened in Sunday's game was the Magic are trying a lot more actions that involve Paolo and Franz playing off of each other. And so that inevitably puts them on the same side of the floor. And so when they make the right play and pass to the opposite side, to the weak side, now Paolo and Franz aren't in the play. They're not balanced out. There's not one on one side of the floor. They're on the same side. You move it to the other, you move it to the weak side. They're not there anymore. I think the Magic should continue to run experiments to figure out how much they can stretch Paolo and Franz. At this point, the criticisms that are out there, it's one game. Everybody's frustrated. I get it. Paolo didn't take enough shots. Some of it was him. Some of it was the defense. Some of it was he was getting the foul line a lot, so the field goal attempts were low because he was getting a lot of free throws. He took 15 free throws in Sunday's game. The Magic have to ride their stars. The Magic have 2 all-star level players. And at this point, Paolo said it after Sunday's game. At this point, you just got to ride your stars and live with their decisions. They may not be the best decisions. They may not be the greatest. These guys are naturally unselfish. They're going to make the right play very often. But this is where we have to stretch and see who these players are. And look, we know a lot already. We've seen a lot from both of them. It's just about getting them back and continuing to get them in rhythm and leaning on them. When the Magic had Tracy McGrady, they had an elite offensive player that teams could load up on and defend like crazy. The Magic have 2 of those. This Magic team should be better than every Tracy McGrady team. And love Team Mac. Love those teams. Grew up on those teams. Those are my guys. Andrew DeClark, forever. Maybe not forever. But the Magic have to continue to explore how much they can push these guys. Honestly, the point guard experiment, if there's something I do agree with, it's a criticism that I will say was fair from Sunday night's game. Paolo and Franz are your point guards. Treat them like that. Obviously, you want to get them shots in different ways and find creative ways to use them and all that stuff. They're your engines. They're the only ones that are going to get things going. And obviously, teams are loading the paint and really making it hard for them to drive. Trust them to make decisions. Obviously, so much of this is about hardening your identity. Look, it's easy to be in love with everything and be excited when you have a season like you had last year. It's easy. Last year, I said this a million times, there's nothing more fun than a team figuring out how to win for the first time because there's no pressure. Everybody feels like you're found money. Go listen to my friend Ku Khalil with Locked On Pistons. They can't believe how good they've been and how great they've been. They're having the season the Magic had last year. I can guarantee Detroit's going to run into the same hiccups and the same problems Orlando's run into next year. That doesn't mean they're going to struggle like the Magic did or they're going to take a step back or something, take a huge step back like the Magic have. Injuries have played a huge role. If the Magic don't get hurt, they're clearly better than Miami. They're in the 4, 5, 6 discussion. That they're fighting for home court advantage. They're fighting for all their goals. That's one of the reasons why I don't think the Magic are panicking over anything. But the Magic, right? But it's easy to love yourself and be excited and play with joy when you're winning. Right now, the Magic are so mired in frustration, they don't look like they're having fun. And that only makes things worse. And I'm not saying have fun when you're losing. Losing sucks. Losing should hurt. But this is the time we need to harden your identity. This is the time we need to say, things aren't going right. This is who we are. And I read those defensive stats. Things aren't going right, and the defense is slipping. I don't care if the Magic don't score a single point. This team's identity is defense. They're going to score points, or not, at least a few points. This team's identity is defense. Lead with your defense. Let your defense create your offense. Offense is going to be what it is. They're not going to fix it till the offseason. But you have to reaffirm who you are as a group. And I hope that's the message. I hope that's the key thing that this team is saying. Let Paolo and Franz dribble the ball into oblivion and trust them to make decisions on offense. Keep the offense super simple. Get the defense right. When this Magic team's defense is right, they can beat anybody. And that's what it's going to take to win. What we've seen over the last 2 months is the Magic not look like themselves. We've said it. The effort's down. The energy's down. The defense is down. And so for these final 20 games, the Magic are obviously going to have to go 12-8 would be nice. Get back over 500. I would love to see them be above 500. I'd love to see them get to 500 again. I think that is one of the goals as well for the last quarter of the season. But we want to see the Magic look like themselves. We want to see them match what made this fan base fall in love with this team again. And frankly, that has been the frustrating part as much as anything else. These last 2 months, Magic haven't looked like themselves. And again, losing Jalen Suggs is a big part of that. He's a big piece of this team's identity. But there's a lot of work to do, and there's still plenty to work on for these final 20 games. Because on top of that, there's a lot at stake too. What's at stake for the Orlando Magic in the final 20 games? Coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Open Phone. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone, and before you know it, you're juggling customer calls day and night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where Open Phone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help you keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on your phone or computer. It integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's OpenPhone, OPENPHONE.com/lockedonnba for 20% off 6 months. OpenPhone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. Again, that's OpenPhone.com/lockedonnba. When I talk to fans, the number one concern I get, the number one thing fans tell me they're worried about, and again, it speaks to where this fan base is at right now and how worried they are, is that this front office is going to do nothing. Is that in the offseason, the front office is going to say what I've said here and chalk up the Magic's poor seeding and poor record to the injuries and move on with the same group. I don't think that fear is legitimate. I acknowledge it. I want to say that very, very firmly. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. I love you. I don't think it's legitimate, though. Jeff Weltman has already made it very, very clear in public discussions and public comments that this team needs work. And that the Magic were aggressive at the trade deadline, couldn't find anything they wanted to do, didn't feel like there was enough that was going to fix this team. At the time, felt like they were very close to getting Jalen Suggs back and getting a chance to see this team at full health, and then moving forward from there. By all accounts, they will be aggressive again this summer. And again, my suspicion is that at the end of the day, I do believe Jeff Weltman when he said teams were trying to squeeze them because they felt they were desperate and wanted players that the Magic were not willing to give up, or draft picks the Magic were not ready to offer quite yet. The Magic held their water, seemingly looking forward to bigger fish coming this offseason. And again, I'm not here to overhype what can happen this offseason. There's a lot of work to do, and the team has not played well, so they're going to be squeezed again. But more doors are open in the offseason. That's the truth. There's a hint of desperation from a lot of teams with that ticking clock at the deadline. There's a lot more you can do in the offseason. I do expect the Magic to be very active this offseason. Again, that doesn't mean we will hear anything, but I do expect Orlando to add 3 new rotation players, which is not something Jeff Weltman has done since the big trades. And that leads us to what's really at stake the rest of the season. Wendell Carter, we talked to Wendell Carter in the locker room after Sunday's game, and he said something very interesting about the time remaining. That this is a time that is really important for every player. Because they have to prove they belong with this team. Getting to the playoffs, and this is the part that was interesting, getting to the playoffs was important to help with everyone's growth, whether they are with the team or not. It was the first time that I think we've heard a public admission from players that something's going to change. Obviously, Paolo Banchero had the comments a few weeks ago saying something's got to change. I think that was more referring to their attitude rather than offseason maneuvers and moves, but there is a sense of frustration from everyone on the roster, and part of it is everyone anticipates where this thing is going and what's going to happen. If you're a player who wants to stay on this team, if you're a player that wants to be in an advantageous place moving forward, these final 20 games are your audition. Plain and simple. If the Magic are open to trading a Wendell Carter, they need Wendell Carter to play well. And the good news is he's starting to play a little bit better. If the Magic were hesitant to move an Anthony Black at the trade deadline, if that was the thing that kept them from making that move at the deadline, they put a lot of faith in Anthony Black once again. They need to see what he is. They need, frankly, they need to make a decision on whether Anthony Black is the right guy for this team. They need to make that decision. We're going to learn that over the next 20 games. And you could go down the roster. If you're not Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, or Jalen Suggs, everybody on the roster is under the microscope over these next 20 games. Can you help this team win? Can you do something to help another team win? Can you restore your trade value? They're not thinking that way, but this is the audition. This is the audition for the future, whether it's with the Magic or with somebody else. There is still so much at stake this season. From the Magic's perspective, they need to restore some value in these guys. If there's a reason the Magic were unable to make trades at the trade deadline, it's because all of their role players, all the players they might possibly maybe could be willing to trade, have all taken steps back this year. Anthony Black may be the one exception, who's played better but has not maybe taken the leap they thought he would take. The Magic need to start seeing some of these guys, for their sake, for their success, for what they want to accomplish, take this step forward. Take that next step. Be that better player. That's what's at stake in this offseason. That's what's at stake the rest of this season. The Magic are trying to make the playoffs. The Magic are trying to plan their future. And look, we know, and it's not just the players, it's the coaches too, it's everybody. When you have a season like the Magic are having, injuries or not, you have to evaluate everything. What has worked, what has not worked, what needs to be changed. If you're not doing that, especially after a season that does not meet expectations, get him out of here. I don't think Jeff Weltman's going to miss that mark. I think they will make evaluations. I think we will see Jamal Mosley make a couple changes to his coaching staff. Something has gone very wrong this year. Things have gone a little stale. It happens in the NBA. They've had some continuity for 3 years. They've gone stale. They've hit their ceiling. Everybody knows that change is coming. And if you're a player that wants to stay on this team, be a part of this, and own this, just like the Magic have to play their way into the playoffs, a lot of these players need to play their way into the Magic's plans. And obviously, even then, that may not be enough, but you play yourself into being wanted by another team as well. It has felt like the Magic are on this inevitable rise, and I still think they are. Are they on the rise to being a championship team? That is the debate. And again, a lot of that still rests on Paolo and Franz, but it now rests on the Magic adding the right players around them and giving them the space to freaking function. Because right now they can't. There's so little space for them to function. It's been annoying. These final 20 games, though, are the last pieces of information this front office gets. And look, the front office at this point, I would be upset if Jeff Weltman didn't already know who he wants to target this offseason, who he wants to keep, what it would take to move each player he is willing to move. And again, unless you're Paolo, Franz, or Jalen Suggs, and frankly, I would throw Mo Wagner in there, but I think the Magic are going to do the contract dance with Mo Wagner again. Unless you're Paolo, Jalen, or Franz, I would already know what I'm willing to move those players for. What package am I offering to get the guys that I want? I would be specific in who I'm targeting. There is very little the Magic can do this season to change that. They're going to make the trades. They're going to make the moves. The question is, just like at the trade deadline, is what the Magic are willing to give up enough to get the players that they want to acquire? And whether the Magic are able to acquire that missing piece, that missing player, that player that gets them over the hump, or whether they have to settle for a second choice, a third choice, or do a lateral move, or God forbid, a cap clearing move instead. That's determined by how this team plays over the last 20 games. We know what Paolo and Franz are going to do. We know who they are. Again, still test their boundaries, test their limits, like all that stuff. It's everyone else that has the most to prove. Wendell Carter called this after the All-Star break the most important 26 games of his career. And he is absolutely right. And frankly, he is the only one playing like it right now. These are a vital 20 final games because it will determine whether the Magic can open the doors they want or still find them locked when they're ready to make the trades that have to happen this offseason. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Find me on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can find the podcast as well on Instagram now at Locked On Magic. How's it on Locked On Magic? You can subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, all of them is still a podcast to your podcast enabling device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. I put my 3 takeaways from every game, usually go up early afternoon. I need to sleep. I have a lot of writing to do. You can check that out on my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. As if all that's not enough, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic Newsletter. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to recap the Orlando Magic's game against the Toronto Raptors. Can the Magic bounce back? We'll check that out tomorrow. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.